The umbrella that followed the rain.
Summary.
A lonely umbrella, forgotten in a shop, wishes to see the world. One rainy night, it leaps into the wind, chasing storms across oceans, deserts, and cities, offering shelter to whoever needs it. Until one day, it finds a child who needs more than just cover. She needs a friend. Moral: when you give freely, you often find where you belong. Segment 1. Forgotten Corners. In the quiet back corner of a cluttered little shop nestled in a rainy alley of London, an umbrella waited. It was not a grand umbrella. Its fabric was a deep navy blue, with a thin silver trim that shimmered faintly under lamplight. A polished wooden handle curled like a cat's tail, elegant, but modest. Dust had begun to gather in its creases. It hadn't seen the outdoors in years. The shop itself smelled of old pages and cracked leather, a fading aroma of forgotten things. Shelves overflowed with clocks that no longer ticked, porcelain dolls with chipped cheeks, and gramophones whose music had long since hushed. Outside, rain tapped against the window like a persistent caller, drawing blurred streaks down the glass. The umbrella hung on a rusty brass hook, its canopy furled tight, its spine aching from disuse. But within it stirred something, a longing. The umbrella did not have words, but it had memory. Of storms danced in, of sidewalks splashed, of hands that gripped it tightly in the wind. It remembered sheltering laughter, rushing feet, and the warm weight of companionship. Now it listened to the rain and yearned. For movement, for skies, for purpose. Night crept over the city in a velvet hush. The shopkeeper turned off the last light and locked the door behind him, unaware of the quiet dream igniting in the umbrella's heart. And outside, the wind began to howl. Segment 2. The leap into the storm. The wind rattled the shop windows with a restless hunger. Outside, lamplight danced in puddles, casting silver ghosts on the cobblestone streets. The city had gone to bed, but the rain... Oh, the rain was wide awake. Inside, the umbrella stirred. A sudden gust slipped through the tiny crevice between door and floor, sweeping fallen leaves and a crisp breath of night into the shop. It swirled around like a whisper, tugging at scarf tassels and pages of open books. It brushed against the umbrella's handle, coiling like a beckoning finger. And something inside the umbrella unfurled. With a tremor, it slipped off the brass hook. For a moment, it dangled uncertain, as if surprised by its own motion. Then the wind came again, stronger now, and the umbrella leapt. It tumbled to the floor with a soft thud, but the shop was silent. No alarm was raised. Outside, the storm grew bolder, a chorus of hissing rain and booming clouds. The umbrella wobbled on its handle, gathering balance like a ballerina on tiptoe. It twitched, twisted, then rolled. Across the wooden floor, past shelves of sleeping relics, toward the front door. Another gust, and the bottom panel of the shop's old swinging door shuddered open just a crack. It was enough. With a final push, the umbrella flew out into the night. It didn't know where it was going, only that it needed to go. And in that moment, as it lifted into the storm's embrace, the umbrella felt more alive than it had in years. It was free. Segment 3. Skyborne Dreams. The umbrella soared above the rooftops, carried by a wild current of storm wind. Below, the city blurred into glistening blacks and yellows, its cobblestone veins slick with rain. Shutters rattled and chimney smoke twisted into spirals, as if waving farewell to the strange figures spinning through the sky. It was not graceful, not at first. The umbrella wobbled, dipped, and twirled awkwardly, like a baby bird unsure of its wings. But the wind was patient. It cupped the umbrella gently, guiding its arc higher and higher. Drops of rain slid along the silver trim, catching the glow of passing windows like shooting stars. The umbrella had never seen so far before. It gazed, if an umbrella can gaze, across the vast cityscape. Car lights tracing ribbons on the streets, canals shining like molten glass, and a clock tower standing sentinel against the sky. It was a world that pulsed with life and motion. And yet, amid that motion, it noticed something still. On the corner of a quiet street, a man hunched beneath a bus stop awning, newspaper hat failing under the deluge. A second later, the umbrella veered. It didn't think. It just fell, spinning fast, then slowing as it descended, landing softly beside the man with a gentle plap. He looked down, startled. Rain streaked his cheeks, and his eyes glinted in the dim streetlight. He reached out, almost unsure, then took the umbrella's handle. It opened willingly. Together, they disappeared into the rain, a silhouette beneath the canopy of a dream. Segment 4. A night of shelter. The man walked with cautious steps, as if afraid the umbrella might vanish as suddenly as it had appeared. His coat was soaked, his shoes squelched with every step, but beneath the navy canopy, a warmth began to spread, not of temperature, but of something deeper. Comfort. Grace. The umbrella steadied in his grasp, adjusting itself against the wind. It angled to block stray gusts, tilted gently to protect his shoulder when the rain came sideways. The man, still silent, glanced upward more than once, confusion flickering in his expression. "Strangest thing," he murmured aloud, voice hoarse. "I could have sworn you weren't here a second ago." The umbrella, of course, said nothing, but it leaned in just slightly, as if to say, "I'm here now." They turned down a side street where puddles shimmered like mirrors. The umbrella glimpsed its reflection, its silver trim glowing like a halo in the lamplight. The sight stirred a curious pride within. It wasn't just a forgotten thing anymore. It had purpose. The man stopped in front of a building with a rusted iron gate. A row of mailboxes clung stubbornly to the wall, graffiti curling around their edges. He turned to fold the umbrella, hesitated, and looked down at it with an odd tenderness. "Thanks," he whispered, brushing a drop of rain from the handle. Then he stepped inside, and the umbrella stood alone again, propped gently beside the gate, droplets trailing from its ribs. But it was not sad. Tonight it had been needed. Segment 5. Carried by the storm. The rain continued into dawn, gentle now, a soft percussion on rooftops and leaves. The umbrella waited quietly by the gate, its fabric still damp, its wooden handle glistening with dew. The street was hushed, save for the occasional splashes of tires and the cooing of doves ruffling water from their wings. But the wind had not forgotten. Just as the clouds thinned and morning light slipped between buildings, a sudden gust rushed down the alley, like a message returned. It curled around the umbrella, lifting the edges of its canopy in a teasing flick. The umbrella trembled, then rose. It twirled through the air like a leaf loosed from a tree, the silver trim catching gold from the rising sun. Up and over chimneys it sailed, over schoolyards and bakery signs, over balconies with flower boxes dripping rain. This time, it was steadier. It had learned to move with the wind, not against it. Each gust became a hand, guiding. Each shift in air a whisper of direction. Below, the world was changing. Gray gave way to gold. Pedestrians emerged with steaming coffee and folded coats. Children stomped joyfully through puddles, unaware of the blue blur crossing the sky above them. The umbrella flew past a park, past a rooftop garden, past a sleeping city cat curled under an awning. Then it felt it again, that pull, the sense that someone somewhere needed it. So it turned, obedient to the call, and let the storm take it once more. It had places to go. Segment 6, The Deserted Road. The city melted away behind the umbrella as the wind carried it farther. Beyond the suburbs, over fields glistening with dew, past hedgerows and sleeping cows. The clouds began to thin, and the rain became a memory clinging to its seams. Soon, it found itself drifting above a long, cracked road that wound through a golden-brown countryside. Trees stood at polite distances, their leaves whispering in the morning breeze. The air was different here, dry, expectant, and filled with the scent of earth just touched by rain. There was no one for miles. The umbrella coasted downward, its ribs trembling from the effort. It landed softly in the dry grass beside the road, where the soil had only seen brief wetness and already yearned for more. The silence here was heavier, wrapped in distant birdsong and the slow hum of wind through tall grass. The umbrella rested, its canopy folded slightly, wearied from its journey. It had no feet to blister or lungs to tire, but it felt the fatigue, some echo of emotion borrowed from those it once sheltered. It waited again, unsure of what would come next. Had it flown too far? Was its purpose left behind in that rain-kissed city? But just as doubt curled into its metal ribs, a figure appeared at the horizon. A girl, small, thin, and walking alone. Her hair was tangled, her shoes worn. She held no jacket, no hat, only a thin backpack that bounced with every step. And above her, the clouds were gathering once more. Segment 7. The Girl and the Gray. She walked with a determined rhythm, arms wrapped tightly around herself, eyes on the road ahead. Her steps kicked up dust and small stones, but she didn't slow down, not even when thunder muttered in the distance like a warning. The umbrella watched from the grass, unseen for now, its canopy barely moving. Something about the girl's presence drew it in, not like the man from the city who had needed temporary shelter, but something deeper. This girl carried loneliness, and not just from being alone. She passed within a few feet of the umbrella. Then the first drop of rain hit her cheek. She flinched but didn't stop. Another drop, then a few more. She pulled her backpack to her chest, trying to shield it. Her shoulders hunched, not from the cold, but from the invisible weight pressing down on her. Grief, perhaps, or fear. The umbrella couldn't bear it. It stirred, slowly at first, wobbling upright as if waking from a long dream. Then it spun, lifted slightly by a fresh breeze, and rolled directly into her path. She stumbled, startled. Her eyes widened as she took a cautious step back. "What?" she whispered. It was then she noticed the umbrella's gentle shimmer, the way the silver trim glowed softly against the dull landscape. Something unspoken passed between them. She bent down, reached out. Her fingers touched the wooden handle. The umbrella bloomed open in her hand like a sigh of relief. And for the first time in a long while, the girl smiled. Segment 8. The Quiet Bond. The girl tilted the open umbrella over her head, marveling at its size. It wasn't flashy or colorful, but something about it felt special, reliable, safe. The rain quickened its pace, pattering against the canopy in a steady rhythm. The sound was gentle, like fingers tapping on a drum. For the first time since leaving the town behind, she felt a sense of shelter. She turned off the road, stepping into a small grove of trees nearby. The umbrella adjusted slightly in her grip, as if guiding her toward drier ground beneath the thick branches. There, the wind was softer, the rain muffled, and the air smelled of wet bark and moss. She sat on a fallen log, the umbrella balanced above her like a loyal guardian. "My name's Lena," she said quietly, unsure why she was speaking aloud. "I guess it's just you and me, huh?" The umbrella didn't reply, of course, but it leaned just a little to the left to shield her backpack, and somehow, that felt like a response. Lena reached into her bag and pulled out a bruised apple. She bit into it slowly, chewing in thoughtful silence. Her eyes occasionally drifted to the umbrella's polished wooden handle, then to the gleaming trim that glistened like silver thread against the rain. She whispered, "You're not like the others. You chose me." The umbrella didn't move, but in the stillness between the raindrops, something bloomed. Connection. Segment 9. A story without words. Lena sat with the umbrella for what felt like hours, though time had stopped mattering the moment she left home. She watched the drops gather and roll off the canopy's edge, each one vanishing into the thirsty earth. The rhythm was calming, steady, like a heartbeat that wasn't hers, but somehow kept her grounded. She looked at the umbrella thoughtfully. "You know," she murmured, "it's funny. People leave things behind all the time. But you feel like you found me." The umbrella gave no answer, yet it shifted ever so slightly to shelter her more fully as the wind picked up. Lena hugged her knees. Her oversized coat sagged around her small frame, and her sneakers were soaked through. She wasn't crying. She'd cried enough already, but a heavy silence clung to her shoulders. A silence shaped like missing someone. She reached into her coat pocket and pulled out a crumpled photograph. Rain had nearly blurred the edges, but the smiling face of a woman still shone through, a warm expression, curly dark hair, a necklace made of glass beads. "My mom made this for me," Lena said to the umbrella. "Told me to keep it close." She stared at the photo for a long moment, her voice growing softer. "But close isn't the same as here." The umbrella didn't pretend to understand loss, but it offered what it could, a shield against the world, a quiet companion, and a shelter that would never leave her side. And for now, that was enough. Segment 10. The Path Ahead. By the time the rain faded into mist, the sun had begun to peek through the thinning clouds. Beams of light filtered through the trees, catching in the moisture on leaves and making everything shimmer as if the forest had been dusted with gold. Lena rose from the log, brushing dirt from her coat. The umbrella remained firmly in her grip, open still. Though the rain had stopped, she didn't want to close it. It felt like closing it would break something unspoken between them. She stepped back onto the road. The world looked different now. Wider, softer. The long stretch of pavement no longer felt like a punishment, but a path. Where it led, she didn't know. But for the first time since she'd started walking, she didn't feel entirely alone. She passed weathered road signs pointing to unfamiliar towns. A rusty bus stop stood silent, sheltering a nest of twigs and feathers. Far off, a tractor groaned in a distant field. The countryside was waking slowly, stretching after the storm. The umbrella rested lightly in her hand, as if it weighed nothing. But Lena knew better. It was carrying her too. As the morning brightened, Lena felt a flicker of something new, subtle but sure.
Not joy, exactly. Not yet.
But something like hope, the first seed of it, curling up from the soil of her sorrow. She adjusted the umbrella's angle, and with steady steps, she walked toward the light. Wherever the road led, she knew one thing. She wasn't facing it alone. Segment 11. A Village of Whispers. By midday, Lena reached the edge of a quiet village nestled between gentle hills. Stone cottages lined the cobbled streets, their windows fogged from warm hearths within. Flower boxes overflowed with lavender and geraniums, dripping with the memory of rain. The scent of baking bread and chimney smoke curled through the air like a lullaby. People were beginning to emerge, an old man sweeping his doorstep, a woman hanging laundry, children skipping around puddles with their boots splashing laughter. No one seemed to notice the girl with wet shoes and tired eyes stepping quietly between them. No one but a dog. A shaggy golden retriever trotted up to her, tail wagging furiously. Lena froze for a moment, unsure, but then the dog simply sat beside her, panting happily under the umbrella's canopy. She smiled. "Hey there," she said, patting its head. "You lost too." The umbrella tilted just enough to cover them both, earning a curious bark from the dog. Lena giggled softly. For a brief moment, the sadness that lived beneath her ribs loosened its grip. A shopkeeper leaned out his door, eyes narrowing with concern. "You all right, miss?" Lena hesitated. She wanted to say yes, wanted to pretend everything was fine. But then she glanced at the umbrella in her hand, and instead of lying, she simply said, "I'm just passing through." The man gave a slow nod. "Storms passed, but there's soup at the tavern if you're hungry." She nodded in return, grateful. And with the umbrella above her and the dog at her side, she walked on. Segment 12. Warmth for the weary. The tavern sat at the village's heart, a squat stone building with ivy creeping up its walls and a crooked sign that read "The Drowsy Hen." The door creaked open with a welcome warmth that rushed out like a hug. Roasted vegetables, wood smoke, and the faint, sweet scent of cider. Lena stepped inside slowly, eyes adjusting to the dim glow of firelight. The room was quiet, save for the soft clatter of cutlery and the occasional murmur of conversation. A few heads turned, noting her drenched coat, mud-spattered shoes, and the peculiar umbrella still open over her. Behind the counter stood a round-faced woman with rosy cheeks and flour-dusted sleeves. Her gaze lingered a moment on Lena, soft, not suspicious, and she gestured to an empty table by the hearth. "Sit down, love," she said kindly. "You look like you've outrun half the sky." Lena nodded and lowered the umbrella, resting it against her chair. For a brief moment, she hesitated. The umbrella had never left her side since it found her. But now, In this gentle warmth, she dared to let go. It stood upright beside her, unwavering, as if keeping watch. A bowl of soup arrived moments later, steam curling up in delicate ribbons. Lena wrapped her fingers around the warm bowl and breathed in deeply. It wasn't just soup. It was care. Someone had stirred it for strangers like her. She ate slowly, methodically, as if trying to remember how to be cared for. The umbrella, though silent, stood tall in the firelight, and in the flickering shadows on the wall, it almost looked like it was smiling. Segment 14. A room of one's own. That evening, as twilight deepened and the tavern's tables emptied, the kind-faced tavern keeper returned with a soft smile and a brass key. "Room upstairs," she said. "No charge. You look like you could use a door that locks and a bed that doesn't ask questions." Lena blinked, stunned. I don't have money." The woman waved it off. "Storm brings wanderers. Sometimes it's coin they carry, sometimes just a story. Either way, we've space." Grateful beyond words, Lena accepted the key with trembling hands. She climbed the narrow wooden staircase with the umbrella tucked under her arm. The dog, who had followed her all day like a shadow, padded silently beside her. The door creaked open to reveal a small room beneath the eaves. One bed, a wooden chair, a desk with a candle already lit, and a window that looked out onto the sleepy street below. Lena set the umbrella gently beside the door. It leaned quietly against the wall, as if satisfied to rest. The dog curled up at the foot of the bed. Lena slipped out of her damp coat and placed her worn backpack on the chair. For the first time in what felt like forever, she sat on a mattress. She let herself lie back, sinking into it, arms folded over her chest. The silence was soft. Not the silence of emptiness, but of peace. Before she drifted into sleep, she whispered into the dim, "Thank you for staying." The umbrella didn't move, but somehow Lena knew it heard. Segment 15. Dreams beneath the canopy. That night, Lena dreamed. She stood beneath the umbrella, but not in the small village room. Instead, she was in the middle of an endless meadow, flowers swaying, sky above painted in hues of dusk and gold. The air was cool, scented with rain and wild herbs. The umbrella hovered just above her head, moving gently with the wind as though tethered to her by something stronger than string. In the dream, she wasn't afraid. The weight she had carried for days, or maybe longer, was gone. Her heart felt light, her breath easy. She looked up and saw the face from the photo, her mother. She didn't speak, but she smiled. That smile, familiar and full of comfort, seemed to stretch across the sky itself. Lena ran through the dream field, laughing, the umbrella keeping pace above her. Her mother walked beside her for a while, then drifted further, becoming light, becoming sky. The umbrella slowed, turned, and waited. Always near, never pushing. When Lena woke, morning light spilled across the wooden floor in ribbons. The candle had burned down to a stub. Birds chirped in the eaves, and the dog still lay curled at her feet, snoring softly. She sat up slowly, rubbing her eyes. Her hand reached instinctively toward the umbrella. It stood precisely where she left it, steady, unchanged. And yet, somehow it felt warmer, as if it had shared the dream with her. She smiled, small and real. Outside, the sky was pale and full of promise. Today, they would keep moving. Segment 16. Farewell to the village. The village stirred to life as Lena stepped out into the morning. The air was cool, touched by dew, and the sky stretched clear and wide above the hills. Children chased chickens across yards, and shopkeepers opened shutters with sleepy yawns. It was the kind of place where time moved slowly, like honey dripping from a spoon. Lena stood at the tavern's door, the umbrella in one hand, her backpack slung over her shoulder. The dog wagged its tail, eyes fixed on her. "You can stay," she whispered to it, bending down. "They'll take care of you here." The dog whined softly, but didn't protest. It seemed to understand some journeys had to be walked alone. The tavern keeper waved from the window, flowers smudging her cheek. "You're welcome back anytime, Storm Girl," she called. Lena smiled. The nickname didn't feel like a burden. Not anymore. She turned down the cobbled road that led out of the village, each step lighter than the one before. The umbrella bobbed slightly in her hand, not open but not closed either, resting, waiting, like a companion between tasks. As she reached the crest of the hill, she looked back. The rooftops glowed like coins in the sunlight. Smoke drifted lazily from chimneys. It was no longer just a place she'd passed through. It was part of her story now. A chapter filled with warmth, with kindness, with soup and silence. She whispered a quiet goodbye, then turned her face to the wind and walked into whatever came next. Segment 17. The storm returns. The path beyond the village wound through dense woodland, where branches formed arches and birdsong echoed like laughter from another world. The sunlight dappled the forest floor, dancing on moss-covered stones. Lena walked for hours, her pace steady, her grip on the umbrella light yet certain. But as the afternoon faded, the sky began to change. It started with the silence, the sudden hush in the trees, as if the forest itself was holding its breath. Then came the wind, not gentle and guiding, but sharp and restless. Leaves scattered across the path. The air grew thick, heavy with the scent of rain. Lena paused, glancing upward. Dark clouds rolled over the treetops like waves preparing to crash. She opened the umbrella. It bloomed instantly, its canopy wide and defiant against the gathering storm. As the first drops fell, heavy and cold, the umbrella held firm, shielding her completely. She pulled her coat tighter and pressed forward. The rain turned fierce. Sheets of it lashed the trees, blurring the path into shadow. Thunder rolled above, low and long like a warning drum. Yet through it all, the umbrella didn't falter. It tilted when the wind howled, shifted when the downpour leaned sideways. Lena felt her heartbeat quicken, not from fear, but focus. She didn't run. She didn't hide. She simply walked on, protected, present, enduring. And for the first time, she realized the storm wasn't just weather, it was a test. And she was passing. Together, they pressed forward, girl and umbrella unshaken. Segment 18. Shelter for another. As Lena emerged from the woods, the storm still howled above, lightning flashing behind a ridge of hills in the distance. Her boots squelched through muddy ground now, her coat soaked despite the umbrella's best efforts. But her face was calm, her steps unwavering. Down in the valley, she saw a shape, small and hunched, barely visible beneath a crooked tree. As she drew closer, the figure resolved into a boy no older than 7, knees drawn to his chest, shivering beneath a thin shirt. He didn't look up until her shadow fell across him. Lena hesitated for only a second before stepping closer, the umbrella stretching over them both without her even needing to guide it. The boy blinked, startled. Are you an angel?" She nearly laughed, but saw the fear in his eyes and swallowed it back.
No.
"Just someone who hates getting wet." His lip trembled. "I lost my brother. He told me to wait here." Lena knelt beside him, lowering herself to his level. "Then we'll wait together." The boy stared at the umbrella, watching raindrops race down its glimmering trim. "It's magic," he whispered. She smiled gently.
Yeah.
"I think it is." They sat in silence, the storm raging around them, but never touching them. Eventually, the boy's head drooped onto her shoulder. His breathing slowed, and Lena sat still, the umbrella above them like a starless sky, quiet, strong, and full of promise. She understood now. It wasn't just her shelter. It was meant to shelter others, too. Segment 19. Where you are needed. The storm softened as the sun sank beneath the hills, its fury ebbing into a soft drizzle. The trees glistened, the grass shimmered, and the world, washed clean, exhaled a damp, quiet peace. Lena stayed still, cradling the boy gently beneath the umbrella's wide canopy. His small hand was wrapped tightly around her coat, even in sleep, and his breath rose and fell with slow, steady calm. Eventually, a voice echoed down the valley. "Jamie." Lena's eyes lifted. A tall figure came sprinting across the wet grass. Mud splashed up his legs, eyes wild with worry. He dropped to his knees the moment he reached them, wrapping the boy in his arms. "Jamie. Oh, thank God. I thought." The boy stirred, blinking awake. "She found me," he murmured. "The umbrella girl." The man turned to Lena, his voice catching. "I don't know how to thank you." He would've. She shook her head. "It's okay. Really." The man stood, helping Jamie to his feet. For a moment, all three stood in the misting rain. Then the umbrella gently tilted backward, as if encouraging them to go. The man took his brother's hand, giving Lena a final, grateful look before they walked away, two shadows heading toward a distant farmhouse light. Lena watched them until they disappeared. She turned to the umbrella, smiling. "You knew." The wind picked up again, playful and expectant. And Lena knew, without a word spoken. It was time to move on again. Segment 20. Where you belong. Dusk melted into night as the wind gathered once more, tousling Lena's hair and teasing the umbrella's silver-trimmed canopy. The storm had passed, but the sky remained restless. Clouds drifting like great ships overhead, stars blinking cautiously between their sails. Lena looked out across the hills, the land vast and quiet beneath the lingering scent of rain. Her reflection shimmered in a puddle at her feet, taller than before, not in size, but in bearing. The loneliness that had weighed her down for so long had changed. It was still there, but softened.
Carried.
She held the umbrella before her, feeling the smooth curve of the wooden handle beneath her fingers. "You've brought me a long way," she whispered. "And I think maybe now it's time for you to keep going." The wind answered, tugging gently at the umbrella, like an old friend reaching for a final goodbye. With a breath she hadn't known she was holding, Lena opened her hand. The umbrella rose slowly, twirling once, twice, as if reluctant to leave. Then, with a leap of breeze, it soared upward, its silver trim catching starlight as it vanished into the night sky. Lena watched it until it became no more than a speck, and she smiled, not with sorrow, but with peace. Because she knew now, the umbrella wasn't just searching for someone to protect. It was searching for someone to belong to. And when it gave shelter, truly gave with all it had, it found that place, just like she had. The umbrella that followed the rain is not just a story about a wandering object. It's a quiet reminder of the power of kindness, the value of presence, and the beauty of giving without expectation. The umbrella, though silent and inanimate, represents something deeply human, the desire to matter, to protect, to belong. At its heart, the story teaches us that true belonging is often found not by seeking it for ourselves, but by offering ourselves to others. Like the umbrella, we may feel forgotten or small at times. But when we give freely, whether comfort, time, care, or simple companionship, we often discover our purpose and place in ways we never expected. The journey of the umbrella mirrors our own. Through storms and stillness, loss and laughter, we grow. We become more than what we were by being there for someone else, even just once. And sometimes, all it takes is one act of shelter to change a life, ours and theirs. Thank you for walking this path with us, for feeling the rain, the wind, and the quiet warmth of connection. May this story stay with you, like a familiar umbrella tucked by the door, ready to be opened not just when skies darken, but when someone else needs a little cover, too. Until we meet again in another story, stay kind, stay open, and never be afraid to follow the rain.